IT building can catch up. Right, yeah. That, once again, as always, you're seeing a couple weeks snapshot into the past on this, and it's just the building's moving incredibly well. As you can see, we've already got casework going in, and then, of course, the athletic building and the academic buildings are moving really fast. And then some of the really neat stuff is that we haven't seen anywhere because the Cypress building is leading the way, and that's on the auditorium building. You can get a real snapshot of what the future is going to look like at Skyline over the next couple of years. But pretty incredible performing arts space. And then we do have two changes that we're bringing to the board today. And just as an explanation, both of them have been fairly lengthy in process. And some of them, it's just the nature of the size of the school and the duration of the school. And something that evolves over time is how schools operate security practice, how they operate entrances and stuff. When this school was originally designed back in 17, 18, 19, making it sound like it's way back in the day. But design practice was different in terms of how you got into the building and didn't get in the building. And quite a few changes were made at Skyline that needed to be incorporated at Cypress, and a lot of those involved card readers in terms of sequencing and access. The district actually mitigated quite a bit of the hardware upgrades and changes by taking on that themselves. I mean, originally we were looking at a change that was well in excess of, I think, $160,000 originally. And now with these systems changes, mostly involves changes we need to make at the doors, electrical, the additional card readers, and other things like that. We feel like we've beat this change into this particular form, but it really is in line with how the district's most modern schools operate and control their secure environments.
Again, trying to be reflective of what was learned in HB 61 and HB 84, trying to add that flexibility that we need to become compliant, as well as just best practice. So these are evolutionary changes that you need to make when you need to make them, and the building was at the right stage to do that.
Right, and quite frankly, in terms of, just to echo something that Don just said, doing it now versus retrofitting it when the building is complete down the road would be an enormous increase in cost. And quite frankly, you know, Westland's kind of been jumping through hoops in terms of sequencing in order to wait for this change in order to continue to meet their schedule. So it's kind of been an all-course effort. You know, obviously $76,000 is a significant sum of money, but we feel like this has been completely vetted out, and the district and the contractor both made a lot of changes to try to mitigate that cost. Well, in almost in excess of, I think it's $90,000 that end up being redirected out of it. So we as BDK strongly recommend, in order for the school to operate as the district currently operates their security functions within the school, we recommend approval for that change. The second change relates to some changes in the CTE function. There are some programs that are unique to Cypress that are taught in the CTE function that required additional electrical and other changes as opposed to what is taught at Skyline. And quite a few talks that we had with school staff, I believe originally just in November, December, and last year, and then we followed that up with some very specific equipment requirements that is coming over from the school, has resulted in some of these changes.
Yeah, CTE is one of those things that often when you're equipping the school, you get what's current in the design, and as you implement over the next 4 years, that model's not available, or the program changes, and this is just reflective of how to support that CTE, FF&E side. So the types of equipment that you're seeing in welding shops, auto shops, the prototyping labs, et cetera, have different power requirements than they did 4 years ago, right? A manufacturer makes one little, you go from a stroke J to a stroke L, and suddenly life just changed because their catalog changed on you. And so the team worked closely with James Taylor and his group to deliver on what the school will now open with.
And you have some extremely passionate teaching staff, I'm sure, and to really hear that come out and see the, the requirements for what they need in order to perform their teaching mission. And so these are the necessary upgrades to the electrical and other changes that we need in order to make in the CT area to make that function as they would like it to function on day one. So that's why we have these two changes. If you look at some of the dates that we've been, that fighting of the district has been fighting this war on the secure and working with the internal stuff for essentially for the last several years in order to vet this out. And we've been working on it for a year, so here we are. So those are the two recommendations that we have for Cypress. As far as Skyline goes,
before you move on to Skyline,
please,
can I ask
Clark.
a follow-up question on the change orders?
Sure.
Just, and we don't need to belabor this much, but I'm just curious. I really appreciate the involvement. Your reference of how can we not do this in the first place? And I'll leave it at that.
No, that's a legitimate question, and I think some of it is, I can't speak to, I wasn't here 4 years ago, but some of that is an evolution process, and some of it is literally, like Don mentioned, an equipment process, like where you're designing for a certain piece of equipment that no longer operates, or the new one, or the new function you're trying to teach. All of a sudden, a prime example was a couple of the changes we made at Skyline, where the new piece of equipment in the wood shop has this power requirement, and the same one that used to perform that function drew 100 amps less, and it was a different phase power. So some of it is, there is a best practice thing to try to involve the staff. The bigger question I think that I always see in doing with K-12 over the last 25, 30 years is the district's will to continue those kinds of programs with a champion, right? Because some programs live and die by the individual champions. And I think this was a case where, just in the last 6, 7, 9 months, I'll call it 9 months at this point since it's now August, how much fun we've had this summer, is that those voices are heard early enough and that the district supports that decision in order to make sure that some of those improvements requirement, and then some of those changes are going to just naturally occur in terms of, hey, this piece of equipment we have been using for the last 10 years and it's got a life cycle of maybe 3 or 4 more years. Is it the best to invest into the newer technology that's going to really help propel our kids into those career opportunities? I don't know if that answered it or not, but
I think that's sufficient, unless you have something that really needs to be
There is,
added.
and there's a comparison I think that we draw that we learned lessons when Granger and Olympus were in process. And if you would have been here for the change orders for CTE, specifically Auto Shop for those two facilities, they pale in comparison. We had changes in which Olympus, we had an alignment rack that required us cutting out the existing already poured concrete slab, not only to accommodate the new footings and foundations for it, but also completely change the power requirement. We had that for multiple pieces of equipment. The coordination, while you're seeing a change order today, is substantially superior in these two projects based upon what we had learned, lessons learned in Granger and Olympus. I mean, they were both great projects. All 4 of these high schools have been great projects, but we learned that the FF&E coordination with CTE starts earlier. You track the equipment more tightly. You actually account for it line by line of every piece of equipment. Again, the amount of change to keep up with the next best or what they were able to buy.
I appreciate that. I go back to, from a go-forward standpoint, I hope that we're continuously working on establishing that best practice.
and this kind of harkens back to that size thing I was talking about. When you're talking 500,000 square feet, you're really talking a not so small college campus kind of development and effort. And especially at Skyline, where it's a phased project and we're disrupting. There are kids who were in second or third grade who are going to be the first ones when the thing's all said and done. Maybe not second grade, maybe fourth grade. Because of that, there is so much effort that goes on, not just from the contractor, which has been a Herculean effort from they and their subs. The school staff is constantly living in a partial built environment, and the kids are constantly being taught in a built environment. But if you look at everything that's gone on in the last, when, the contractor was promising a certain date, and that date wasn't a date that anybody wanted to live with. As soon as we could this summer. And so everyone's been living on the bare concrete floor or the less than pretty environment and everything along those lines. So there really has been I would call it a district-wide effort in order to make this work, in addition with everything that the contractor's been doing. Justin, Ashton, I think they think Ashton goes to school there. Not because he's a young-looking man, but just because he's always there. And everything that Justin and Rich and everybody, in conjunction and working with us and obviously the architect and engineer on that team. So, the fact is, we got fire marshal approval, the Ansel system for the kitchen's approved, the elevator is tomorrow, but it's already gone through a couple of inspections. The gremlins have been slaughtered and their bodies buried appropriately, knock on wood. And so, there is a whole lot of work that's gone on in a really short period of time. And if you haven't had a chance to go, I know we have a ribbon cutting plan, I think on the 13th, but go and see and do the graphics with input from the community council on, making it a very Skyline specific graphic package, the classrooms. You can see the sewing lab, the teacher equipments and the ceramics and the wood shops and the different things, the different finishes, the teachers area. And there's our lovely Relo Village where people will continue to teach, including, which is kind of amazing, some of the lead teachers who we've been working with so closely. That's where they're going for the next year and a half until we get 2 years till we get some of that area done. As you can see, the lovely crater, formerly known as the academic building, and the teacher collaboration spaces and some of the other great spaces inside this facility. And I don't believe we have any changes to bring before the board. But anyway, we're in. It's messy. It's but we're in. The teachers are going to teach. The teachers are excited. Principal Nerden and his staff have been really gracious to work with this whole summer, as we have not had yet another normal summer. So maybe someday they'll have one.
None of us have, so why should you?
Yeah, why should they be any privilege? So anyway, sorry for the soapbox, but I felt like there needed to be a big acknowledgement of everything on the district side, as well as what the contractor and those guys are doing, so.
Thank you, Chris. I was going to mention there is one change, not related to Hughes Construction, but we hired an independent or a separate abatement contractor to take all the asbestos out of the old academic building. And we were able to find a company down south, southern Utah, and teamed up with a company in Vegas that saved us darn near $1 million. And so we're hoping we'll do more work with them in the future. But got it done in the 30-day window that we made sure they understood, and they did it, and hats off to them. That being said, there is a $67,500 change to their contract. As we got done, turned it over to Hughes to start demoing, they discovered some old transite pipe in the ground that was used to bring air. It was the air ducts back, and they were underground, and that's asbestos material. That's very hazardous. And so, having discovered that, not knowing that, we had to go back and pull all that out of the ground. They had to remob, come back up from southern Utah to get on site and tear all that out. So it's unfortunate, but overall they were well underneath the other local abatement contractors. So we were excited to have another player in the market, and I think there was a letter written and sent that you'd seen. So that was the rationale behind that abatement change. And I do think the school is awesome.
Did we see that one? I don't recall that one being in the packet today.
Is it not in there?
I don't believe so. For Skyline, if there was the 2 for Cypress, was there a 3rd for Skyline? Maybe I'm mistaken. I would absolutely put it on me, but let me double check.
I know I wrote it, and I'm not sure.
I have 3. I thought I had 3.
You got 3?
Hang on. Cypress, Skyline rebuild, change order.
Skyline Creations is the name of the company.
Yeah, Skyline Creations at Skyline, so there's a lot of kind of confusion there. Yeah.
My mistake. I will review over the next hour and 15 minutes.
The three of us will now make our way to IMC Hospital, where they can take care of the heart attacks you just gave us. So,
I sincerely apologize. I did not. That certainly was not my intent.
I'm going to speak more about this in my Good News Minute, but I just think that what you guys have done is phenomenal. I feel like there's been so much effort between so many people with our community, with all of our contractors, with BDK, with our granite people and volunteers and teachers and students and parents, and just so many people have come together, and I think that I'm really excited about the product in the end, and I'm thrilled to see that it looks like our staff will be settled in pretty well in time to teach there. And so I just, greatest compliments, greatest appreciation to everyone who's had a hand in the whole process. It's been a long process.
Thank you.
any questions for this long, big, important, just before school starts update?
Anything else? I think we're good. Thank you, gentlemen. We really appreciate the Herculean efforts that have been made, especially with Westlake. So thank you.
We're not calling the school the Aegean Stables when we say Herculean efforts, right?
No. All right, we have need of an executive session. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we go into an executive session for character and competence.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to move into executive session for the purpose of character and competence. This is a roll call vote. Julie, go ahead and go first. Oh, sorry, state your name.
Julie Jackson, yes.
Thank you. Kim, go ahead.
Kim Chandler, yes.
Connie Burgess, yes.
Chris Swin, yes.
Clark Nelson, yes.
And Nicole McDermott, yes. All right. Thank you. We're going to excuse